Welcome, everyone. This is Seek Sustainable Japan, our sub series short takes, 30 minutes of topics from Japan focused on sustainability. I'm JJWalsh here in Hiroshima, joined by.
Hi, I'm Tove Kinooka here in Yokohama.
And Tova, we have big information, big event coming up next week, and you're going to be able to join. I'm so happy. But I won't tell yet who are the other secret guests. I'll do a big announcement. But mark your calendars, folks. I hope you can join us for a long live 500th episode from 6 to 9 p.m. next Sunday. So a week from Sunday. Wow. It's just unbelievable that I could be at 500 episodes.
Yeah. What? Yeah. I mean, what started as just sort of an experiment, right? During COVID, nothing else was going on. Yeah. I mean, you've done an amazing job. So to get to 500 is phenomenal.
And you've been such a great part of it because we do this regular monthly 30-minute catch up, but also we did the Women Inspire event together. And I think that helped me connect to so many new people as well. Every event I go to, I always meet great new people, and I want to have them on my show and go more in depth, So it's been a great discovery.
There's a great network out there of people doing good stuff. So it's wonderful that you're giving them a platform and a voice.
So. Trying to. It's been a great part of my brand. Like by highlighting other people. And I think we see this in sustainable businesses a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like how people elevate their own brand by elevating what great work and collaborating with great other businesses, right?
Exactly. Because a lot of the time, I think, we work really hard in our little space wherever we are, to make the impact. And then sometimes it can feel like you're very alone and nobody's listening and it's not really having the impact you want. But then when you can connect with others who are doing good things in other places and find opportunities for collaboration, but also just realize that, there is a lot going on out there. And it's really wonderful to meet those people and get inspiration. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the topics that we're covering on the 500th, I'm going to have different groups of speakers who everybody knows and loves and talking about topics which have been really popular on the show so far. So we're talking about sustainable business. You'll be in that segment in the beginning. And then we'll talk with a group of creatives in Kyoto. And we're talking about organic farming, sustainable farming. And then we're going to finish with some Minka masters who are talking about renovating and keeping traditions of Japanese houses. So I'm really excited.
Fantastic. Sounds
also good. A technical challenge because I'm going to have to moderate with lots of different groups coming in. So fingers crossed, everything goes well.
I love this. I love the way you keep challenging yourself and pushing the boundaries. It's fantastic.
We have to do something special for the 500th, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now you want to share about the fabric event that's coming up?
Yes, so this is happening on the 6th of July. So our friends at Fabric in Tokyo are doing an event on called Mela, which means a Sanskrit word for gathering or fair, but it's sort of stands for Mountain Ecosystem Legacy Action. And somebody that you've interviewed, Carol Fuchs, who's a climate specialist advocate and also professional mountain athlete, will be a big part of that, but there'll also be other organizations sort of working on mountain ecosystem related areas. So looking at what's going on there, getting understanding, but also sort of opportunities to support as well. So really looking forward to that. And it'll be a great community event as well, opportunity to connect with people in the sustainability network.
Yeah, I wish I could come up for that. Unfortunately, it's right before I'm going home for a while. So I can't make it to Tokyo, but it sounds like a great event. And James, who is the founder of Fabric, is one of the people who's joining next week. So
there you go.
Little hint there. So I'm sure we'll talk about that again.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now, you had another reminder about Refugees International.
Yeah, so yesterday was World Refugee Day, and a bit like sort of International Women's Day, there's a theme each year. So this was really about sort of solidarity with refugees this time. We're now at the point, I think it's, I had the stats somewhere on my thingy, we're at 120 million currently people globally classified as displaced. That might be displaced in other countries or internally displaced due to conflict, due to climate issues. There are a lot of different reasons, but that's a horrendous number. That's the highest it's ever been. It's been going up year on year for at least the last 12 years. And it's something I think we all need to be aware of, because particularly the big organizations I work with, if you look down through the value chain, the supply chain, there are refugees along that and communities that are impacted by this. And so it really relates to all of us, right? Nobody wants to be in that situation. And sometimes you can think life is all going beautifully, and then things can completely turn upside down. And all of a sudden, you're on the road with a bag and nowhere to go. So I think it's really something we really need to be aware of. And the thing I think was also worth highlighting is that when we think of refugees, people often think of the need for sort of immediate aid, perhaps sort of shelter and food and things like this. So, for example, with the situation in Gaza at the moment, then, of course, that sort of immediate aid is incredibly important. But there are a lot of communities where people have been refugees for years, decades even, that kind of get forgotten. And once it's out of the headlines and that immediate need for perhaps food or something is out of the way, these communities just sort of get left there, but they can't go home if the conflict, whatever, is still ongoing. So organizations like REI, who I work with, are looking at sort of longer term solutions there. So once we've got past that initial crisis, how can we sort of support and empower people to get back on their feet? And make it sustainable as well. So it's not sort of the outside agencies coming in and giving the sort of what's needed at that point, and that it's a sort of a donation that needs to be made again and again. This is sort of finding ways that people can learn new skills, find new ways to support themselves and their families, and be part of the community they're living in as well. So it makes it that much more sustainable and helps them rebuild their lives and regain their independence. So if you're looking for something to do to support refugees, go and have a look at that. I think it's well worth considering what you can do.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. It's so important. When I do tours of Peace Park here in Hiroshima, there is a monument for the anonymous victim where a lot of the ashes are kept from people who they couldn't identify before they had to cremate their bodies. And they're still looking for matches. They're still trying to find the families, which is really incredible. There's this monument where it's a face, and it usually has water over it. And the idea is, if you look into it, you can see your own face with the anonymous face, to kind of have that idea that it could be me, it could be any of us.
Yeah,
and
very much.
That's the same for when we talk about refugees. It could be all of us.
Exactly. None of us are immune to this. I mean, things can change very quickly with the geopolitical situation, but also, I mean, with extreme weather events and stuff. If that comes in and destroys your area, like we're seeing more and more now, then all of a sudden you can find yourself with nowhere to go, no support. So, yeah.
So helping refugees can lead to good karma, if some believe in that, like setting up these good situations, which might be something we need in the future too, right? Like it's not just selfless helping other people. It pays it back in good ways to us. Thank you for all your work in that area, Tove.
No.
Yeah. Now, in the news recently, it's very exciting. You're there in Tokyo. We have 2 women leaders in Japan, Koike and Renho, and they are both going for the Tokyo governance job. And it's really exciting to see women in politics.
I know. It's great. I would love to see more of this. Hopefully they can inspire others, by role modeling what's possible,
absolutely.
that's something. We need
And
more
some of
of.
the key topics of the race is what they're talking about is, of course, the declining birth rate and how to support working women and how to encourage better family work-life balance. All of these really
Yeah.
important social issues that we've been struggling with in Japan for so long.
Hmm.
So we were just talking before we went live. Neither of us can vote in Japan, even though we're permanent residents. We might live here forever. But it's really exciting to see women leaders talking about these important issues for
Yeah.
everyone. So it's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, good luck to both of them. It's just really inspiring to see them both up there, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And one of the key differences it looks like is Renho has been bringing up the Meiji Jingu project, for example, that
Yeah.
Koike let
Right.
go like business as usual, but we need to
Mhm.
think about trees. So we have other environmental issues also starting to come in the debates, which is really important
Yes.
to be
Yeah.
discussing these things, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. I mean, that needs to be on the agenda as well. Of course, there are, so many issues that need to be looked at. But I think with the heat you were just mentioning before we went live, I think that, already it's hit 35 down where you are, in Hiroshima. This is, this is way sooner than we would normally expect. And so we need the greenery, every bit of greenery. We need more than we have already. So we shouldn't, at all be taking any of it out of our cities. We really need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. Now, also talking about gender equality, wonderful to see women leading the country and talking about these important issues. Also about diversity. You had a great
Yes.
report from the BCCJ.
Yeah, so Robert Walters, one of the BCCJ members, and a very strong sort of voice in Japan for LGBTQ community, have announced that they will match the social security benefits for same-sex partners of their employees. So, as I'm sure everyone knows, same-sex marriage is not yet recognized here in Japan. Thailand's just had great results on that, so hopefully that'll move the conversation forward a bit faster here. But it's really great to see companies like that not waiting for the government to say, well, same-sex marriage isn't recognized, therefore they can't have the benefits that a sort of separate sex couple would have. But the company's taking the lead and saying, well, we don't think that's fair, so we're going to top that up and make sure that your same-sex partner will access the benefits as well and be able to get healthcare, etc. So I think that's an amazing example from Robert Walters. Hopefully that will also encourage other companies to consider doing the same. And also put pressure, I think, on the government to say, look, you're being left behind. You're going to look a bit stupid here. Let's move forward into the 21st century.
Yeah. I often have same-sex couples coming through and guiding them around. And I always say, how do you feel going through Japan? It's
Mm,
not yet legal in Japan to be a same-sex couple in terms of equal rights.
yeah.
And they're coming from countries where it is.
Mm,
And they, these are young professionals often, and they say, yeah, I've often thought about coming to work in Japan, but until it becomes legal, we
yeah.
can't consider it, which is
No,
it's powerful reason for Japan to like now
exactly.
Thailand
Yeah.
has done it, like you've said, the first
Hmm.
in Asia. Asia has really been a little bit slower to make
I
equal
think
rights.
Taiwan also as well
Yeah,
is
that's right.
progressive
Yeah.
on that. So yeah.
But they said,
Mm,
even as a young couple I talked to from the Netherlands, they were saying, we feel really lucky to be young and living in a country now where we are accepted
yeah.
for who we are and we
Yeah.
can live as we want to live. And
Hmm.
it was so powerful, and I was like, yes, it's awesome. Because they said
Yes.
even their parents' generation, it
No.
wasn't accepted. It wasn't easy, right?
No, it has been very difficult, and it's an ongoing battle. I know here, Joshua Bryan from Robert Walters has been, a very strong advocate, and we've seen it at Pride this year. We talked about it a couple of months ago that a lot of companies were there, sort of showing their support. So I think things are shifting. And really, with the population decline in Japan and stuff, we really need to address these issues and make sure that it is an attractive working environment, a fair working environment for people to come into. So
Yeah.
hopefully progress.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think the foundation of acceptance is already here. All of these same-sex couples coming through, they say they don't have any adverse reaction when they're checking in to same-sex couple having a double bed. It's never
Yeah.
been a problem in Japan.
Mm.
So that's great to hear that there's already a
Yeah.
kind of an undertow of acceptance. So
Yeah.
we're kind of ready for it. We're ready for the law to change, right?
Yes, exactly. For the law to catch up, I think, with public sentiment and companies. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And now you had an interesting event you went to about corporate governance.
Yeah, so this was a BCCJ event in collaboration with ACCJ, the American Chamber, as well. And the moderator there, you can see on the left, Heather Prosser from Morrow Sodali. And they were talking about really what's going on at the moment in the sort of ESG context, but on the G side of that, what's happening in terms of governance, particularly sort of when we're talking about boards, how aware are boards of the different sustainability issues? Where are the pressure coming on from? Sorry, I'm just going to cough and go on mute for a excuse me. So it was really interesting, and gender equality definitely came up as one issue that in Japan still needs a lot more work. And it was interesting because Melanie Brock, who was there on the panel as well, sits on several different boards as an external director. And she says very often those boards, it's the same women that she sees on different boards. And it's great that those women have got there and are doing it. And she said they're all kind of like her. They're long-term in Japan. They're bilingual. And so they can sort of tick many boxes in that sense. But she said, really, we need a more diverse sort of at board level, more diversity at board level in Japan. And that needs pipeline building as well, and also support for women to understand what's required in a board role and how they can find them, how they can really sort of make an impact as a board director. Then we were talking about the fact that, you know, when it comes to the E part of ESG, a lot of companies still just focus on carbon, which is, of course, incredibly important. But there's a bit of sort of carbon tunnel vision going on. And we also really need to be talking about other areas like water, like soil degradation, like oceans, like, you know, the mountain systems that Fabric will be talking about at their event. Biodiversity is a huge one, and the TNFD, the nature-related disclosures that are coming out, which means companies are going to have to be measuring this. So boards need to understand what's going on there in order to make the right decisions. And at the moment, it seems that there isn't deep enough understanding. So there's an opportunity here, really, that companies need to be giving their boards education on this and making sure that they're bringing in people who do have some knowledge on this to make the right direction and steer the companies in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes to one of the topics I was going to bring up today. I got a wonderful magazine from my university when I did my undergrad, and they have a focus on sustainability. And with their title and cover and focus on sustainability, you look inside and they have an entire page about how they also made the magazine more sustainable. Look on page 2. You'll see the Forest Stewardship Council mark. We use this kind of ink, like really laying it out, all of the details about the how and the why. And I think this is where we're kind of seeing a gap in Japan, especially for how businesses are talking about sustainability.
Yes.
But they're not detailing the how and the why.
That's such an interesting point. Yeah.
Right? Like even places that are saying, "Oh, we have local fish." Okay, well, you got to spell it out. Why is that better than any other kind of fish place, you know?
Exactly.
You have local artisans doing it. Yeah, but why is that better? Like you really have to spell it out so that people understand clearly the difference between the status quo, the normal business who's doing business as usual, and what you're doing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that came up quite a bit in the panel, actually, that sort of how companies are communicating their sustainability strategies. And at the moment, the answer was sort of not very well and not enough, very often. And sort of, so it's sort of what you're communicating, but also how you're communicating, understanding who you're communicating to, and making sure that this is going to make sense to them and will resonate with them. And that how and the why bit is really interesting. We did a workshop 2 days ago for a client here, so a German company based in Japan, on organizational culture. And we had the sort of employees, all the employees together, plus the leaders in the room. And we were talking about sort of surfacing those difficult sort of thorny issues, that all the frustrations and things. And one of the things that came up was, okay, we know what you want us to do. And, it's coming down from on high in Germany and being sort of relayed through the leaders here, what we need to be doing. But we don't understand, why. Nobody tells us why. So therefore, motivation and sort of engagement is that much lower. So that is such an important piece of the puzzle, right? So not just what are we doing, how also, but also why. Why is this important?
And I think that ties into so many issues. The government is trying to reduce plastic bags, for example, like a very specific issue, but they don't explain why they need to reduce plastic bags, why we need to stop using plastic bags. So a lot of users you see going back to just paying for plastic bags because the argument for why not use them was not there. It was just a charge, So
yeah. Or they go to the packing area where there's the roll of little plastic bags, and then they just put everything inside those, which makes me want to scream or cry or both. I'm not quite sure which. Yeah.
And then you'll see like a lot of sustainable tours or sustainable businesses, but they'll still be using plastic bags. But they need to say why they're making that choice. Or are they not seeing that? Like, look at everything. Look at everything that's happening. What is the image? And then like now you'll see international hotel chains in Japan, like Hilton. And they're tying up with Maimizu, and they're saying we've got refill bottles. But even there, and I think they could do a little bit explanation, like why refilling is better, why using plastic water bottles is not good because of your health, microplastics, but also the environment. Like, let's just make that argument very clear everywhere, right?
Exactly. I think it's very easy for those of us working in sustainability every day to assume that everybody understands the why, right? For us, it's just a tarime. It's kind of common sense, right? Why wouldn't you understand that? But I think it's easy to forget that this is what we do every day. We're so deep in it that, of course, it makes sense to us, but for others, it might not be so obvious. And I think we need to be empathetic to that and say that, people aren't necessarily trying to cause harm or pollution or whatever. They just don't realize the impact of their actions. It's never been pointed out to them. And so I think there's a lot more that, particularly the big companies like sort of Hilton and other companies that produce anything consumer packaged goods, for example, really could be doing to educate, why we're doing this now. Why are we, you look on the back of anything made by Unilever or P&G and stuff, and it'll have sort of made with renewable energy. Great. Why? Why is that important? Or, this packaging is recycled plastic, etc. So wonderful, but explain the why as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting thing I also picked up from Japan Times was how they are starting to, like local government areas, are starting to list some of the Dai-Gomi, some of the big garbage on Mercari, one of the apps to reuse and upcycle some of the big things. And so those kind of articles I love seeing in the Japan Times. But even underneath a news article like that, they could say why reuse is so much more important. It's not just to save money. Of course, that's important, but there's so much carbon. There's so much, problems with pollution and things by making everything from virgin materials. That's why we should reuse these things. We're starting to see trends in Europe and North America where companies are required to have a repair shop. So that you can take your products back and get them repaired instead of replaced, right? So I think there's a lot of great trends happening. in this
Yes,
area.
yeah, and I think regulation like the stuff in Europe around the sort of right to repair and things will begin to drive change in this area, particularly like the large global companies based here that want to sell their products in those markets are going to have to get on board with that, and therefore, if they're doing it there, surely they could do the same here. So, but it requires a shift in mindset, I think, both within the organisation, but with the consumers as well. They need to understand that that's available and possible and makes sense, but also what are the benefits for them, what are benefits for planet, etc. Otherwise people won't change.
No, absolutely. I'll just put the link here to the Japan Times article
Brilliant. Yeah.
about, but it's wonderful to see Japanese government also using existing structures, right? Like
Yes.
existing online shops like
Mm.
Mercari, or using
Yeah.
apps. Japan Rail is now doing a big transition from paper tickets to QR codes, and
Yeah.
a lot of people who use the commuter passes, they ran out of the cards, so they created a
Yes.
great online app version, right?
Yeah.
So that also reduces a lot of waste. These, we can't underestimate.
Yeah.
These are very positive changes as well.
Exactly. No, I started using the app finally a few months ago for the JR lines, and it's so much easier now. I mean, I'm a tech luddite. I'm terrible, so I'd put it off for ages because it was nice and easy to have my card I could tap in and tap out. But then eventually I did get around to downloading the app, and it's actually really good. So it just takes that shift, right,
Yeah.
and overcoming the hurdles of the inertia of it's not familiar. Why should I do it this way? But when we do change it, it's often we find it's rather good.
And it's so good for international visitors, because
Yes.
think of how many, like 3 million international visitors a month we're getting now.
Wow.
Think of all of them getting the commuter cards and then
Yeah.
only using it for a couple weeks, and then that becomes a waste, right? But
Exactly.
now
Yeah.
they're using the apps and they find it so convenient to charge from their banks.
Yeah.
It's a digital currency, so it's really convenient. It
Yeah.
adds value to their experience in Japan, but
Yeah.
yet really reduces the waste. So it's wonderful.
Exactly. And I know part of the app at least is in English as well. So I mean that helps obviously travelers coming in as well who can't read the Japanese. So because otherwise the ticket machines can be really challenging. You see foreigners stood there looking thoroughly confused, and poor train sort of rail attendants trying to help them but not being able to speak the English as well. So this can make things a lot easier for everyone.
Yeah. Just a little plug. I went to Ogasawara at the beginning of the year, and they did a little video of my time
Oh,
there,
fantastic.
introducing some of the more sustainable projects and initiatives that they're doing on those nature reserve protected islands. It's really fun, beautiful photography. We're going to be talking with the guy who went with me from Hiroshima, and he's an amazing photographer. And so we're going to be showing, meeting for a talk in the beginning of next month, talking more and showing some of his beautiful photography as well. But it's a fun little video if you want to watch and
Can you share a link?
see me introducing compost toilets, which was one of
Brilliant.
the features
Yeah.
of the visit this time. Yeah, I'll put a link
Yeah, do.
in the
That'd be
chat.
great.
Yeah, and that's technically Tokyo, which is such a mind blow.
Yeah, that's a strange thing, but there you go.
So when you're going around those beautiful tropical islands, all the license plates are from Tokyo, Shinagawa, and other areas, which is fun. Also, I interviewed Ashley Souther a few days ago, and he's based in Hiroshima for a long time. And we had a great discussion about peace education. He's a high school peace educator. So he does high school English classes, but also he does the peace education classes, which is mandatory
Fantastic.
all throughout Japan. And he himself has had experience living and working in Gaza. So he had the students connect with students
Oh,
from
wow.
Gaza, and the Gaza students actually visited his classroom in Japan and made that human connection to the issues and to the people, which made it much less abstract and much more
Yeah.
tangible to them. And just doing an amazing job. He also has a experience as a pro wrestler in Japan, so we talked about that a little bit, which was really fun.
Pretty diverse portfolio then.
Very, very.
Brilliant. Love
So I
it.
think that's about all. Did we cover everything you wanted to talk about, Tova?
I think so. Yes, we did.
Yeah, great. Just one more little thing to mention. I am going back to Hawaii, home to see family for a month this summer. And one of the things I was so excited to find is a big beach cleanup in Hawaii while I'm
Oh,
there.
wonderful.
So if anybody wants to join us in Waikiki, Ala Moana Beach on July 13th, you're more than welcome. But I think that's also a great thing to think about, right? Like even when you're on vacation, how
Mm,
can you engage with local people who have your shared interests about
exactly.
protecting the
Yeah.
planet or
Hmm.
building a community that's focused on plus it'll be really interesting to see how they do it, how they do events, which I'm trying to
Yeah.
do in Hiroshima, and
Hmm.
what kind of things they pick up. Like, is it connected to what I find? You know, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, interesting. Okay, we'll look forward to hearing about it.
So I'm sure I'll be sharing photos and videos from the event as well as other sustainable things I find in Hawaii. So it's always nice to compare, isn't it?
Mm,
Like when you go
yeah.
home or you go to other countries, you're always comparing back to what you see in Japan, aren't you?
Yeah, very much, very much. So I'll be in London next week for work and meeting up with some of the sustainability network there as well. So looking forward to hearing about what's going on in that part of the world. And yeah, we can share that when we speak on the 30th.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you so much, Natasha, for joining and all your fabulous comments. She saw the most incredible documentary in the theater about the first woman leader in Taiwan. She's amazing. How
Mm,
wonderful. Thank you so much for commenting. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And see us on the 30th, right, Tova?
Yep, looking forward to it.
Have a great day.